You won't believe what happened at my lake cabin last weekend. I went out to enjoy some peace by the water, only to find Karen, you know the type, standing right in my parking spot, acting like it was hers. She was so sure, so entitled, talking like she owned the whole place. But what she didn't realize, I actually owned the entire parking lot. That's right. The whole lot belongs to me. And things were about to get a lot more complicated. I had just pulled up, ready to relax. After a long week, when Karen started demanding I move my truck because her spot was taken. At first, I thought it was a simple misunderstanding. Maybe she rented a nearby cabin or something? But her tone was sharp, and her attitude completely over the top. She wasn't just asking politely, she was insisting, almost like she was above the rules. It was clear she felt entitled, like the whole place should bend to her will. That's when I realized this wasn't going to be just a small parking dispute. It was about respect, boundaries, and what happens when people assume they have rights they don't actually own. I tried to explain that I own the lot and that spot, but she wouldn't listen. Instead, she doubled down, making a scene that caught the attention of other cabin owners and visitors nearby. I knew I had to stand my ground. But little did I expect the situation to escalate the way it did. This wasn't just about parking. Anymore, it was turning into a full-on clash of wills. What would happen next? Would Karen back off? Or was she about to make things a lot worse? Stay tuned, because this story is just getting started, and you're not going to want to miss what happens next. I guess I should back up a little and explain how I even ended up owning that entire parking lot by the lake. A few years ago, I bought a small cabin as a getaway spot, something peaceful where I could escape from the daily grind. Over time, I managed to purchase the adjacent land around the cabin, including that parking lot, which many people didn't even realize was privately owned. It's kind of a hidden gem, peaceful, quiet. It's perfect for anyone wanting a break from the city noise, because the lot isn't clearly marked or fenced off. Some people have assumed it's public or shared property. That's where most of the confusion begins. I've tried putting up signs, but they often get ignored or vandalized. It's frustrating because I respect everyone's right to enjoy the lake, but at the same time, I expect people to respect the boundaries I've set, especially on property I legally own. That's why Karen's attitude hit a nerve. She didn't just want to park there. She acted like the lot and spot belonged to her personally, without any regard for what's fair or legal. I noticed she wasn't just any visitor. She came with a group, and they seemed to know the area, which made me wonder if this was some kind of ongoing issue or just a one-time confrontation. People like Karen, who act entitled and aggressive, tend to cause problems in quiet places like this. But I wanted to understand her side too, even if her approach was completely wrong. As the tension built, more neighbors started watching from their cabins, whispering about what was happening. No one wanted a scene, but everyone was curious. Would Karen finally leave the spot, or was she planning to push harder? And if she did push, how far would this go? I knew this wasn't just a simple parking dispute anymore. It was turning into a real test of patience, ownership, and respect. The next moments could change everything at the lake. As the minutes passed, the situation grew more intense. Karen wasn't backing down, and her group started gathering around her like they were ready to support whatever claim she was making. I could see that her confidence came not just from stubbornness, but from feeling backed by those around her. Like, they all believed this parking spot was hers by right. It was strange because, from my perspective, none of this made sense. I owned the entire lot, and I had the paperwork to prove it if things got that serious. But I wanted to avoid a messy confrontation if I could. At the same time, I noticed one of the neighbors walking over cautiously. She's lived here for years and usually stays out of any drama, but this was different. She pulled me aside quietly and said she'd had problems with Karen before, not about parking, but about other rules and boundaries in the community. Apparently, Karen had a habit of acting entitled whenever things didn't go her way, pushing her weight around without regard for others. That made me realize this wasn't just a one-off misunderstanding. Karen's attitude was part of a bigger pattern. It wasn't just about a parking spot. It was about respect, community, and who thinks they can take what they want. Meanwhile, Karen kept raising her voice, making claims that she had always parked here and that I was being unreasonable. People nearby started whispering, some clearly siding with her, while others gave me sympathetic looks. The air felt thick with tension, and I could feel eyes watching every move, waiting to see how this would end. As I stood there, I thought about what this fight really meant. Was it just about parking, or was it about something deeper? Property rights, yes, but also how people act when they feel entitled. How far does someone go when they believe a place belongs to them, even when it doesn't? The questions hung in the air, and the conflict wasn't just between me and Karen anymore. It was between different ways of thinking about respect and ownership. And none of it had an easy answer. The tension was so thick, you could almost cut it with a knife. Karen's voice grew louder, and the crowd around us seemed to split between those who sided with her and those who quietly supported me. I could feel my heart racing, not from anger, but from the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about a parking spot anymore. It had become a standoff, a battle over respect, ownership, and boundaries. Karen's group started getting more aggressive, their tone shifting from confident to confrontational. One of them even stepped closer to my truck, as if daring me to make a move. I stood my ground, trying to keep calm, but inside I was thinking through what to do next. Should I call the authorities? Would that make things worse? The last thing I wanted was a public fight in a place that's supposed to be a peaceful retreat. Then, out of nowhere, Karen pulled out her phone and started recording the whole thing. "For proof," she said loudly, "so everyone knows what's really going on here." It felt like a power play using technology to sway the crowd and maybe turn this into some kind of viral moment. I realized then how tricky this was. With everyone watching and recording, any wrong move could blow up into something way bigger than a simple parking dispute. The neighbors nearby began whispering louder, some looking concerned, others curious. A few even stepped closer, as if ready to intervene or take sides. I caught the eye of the longtime neighbor who had warned me earlier, and she gave me a subtle nod like she was saying, "Stay strong, but be careful." I wanted to end this peacefully, but Karen wasn't giving any signs of backing down. The crowd's energy felt charged, almost like a powder keg waiting for a spark. I took a deep breath, knowing the next moments could change everything. Would Karen finally respect my ownership, or was this about to spiral into something none of us were prepared for? The parking spot had become a battleground, and the outcome was still anyone's guess. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, Karen's phone buzzed with a call. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted. Suddenly, she wasn't as confident as before. Without warning, she told her group she had to step away for a moment, then walked briskly toward one of the nearby cabins. Curious, I followed, quietly keeping my distance but wanting to understand what was going on from across the way. I overheard bits of her conversation. She was talking to someone about ownership and documents, mentioning a lawyer. That caught my attention. Immediately, was she planning to challenge my claim legally? Or was there something else I didn't know about the property? The whole situation was starting to feel less like a simple parking dispute and more like a complicated battle over rights and control. As Karen returned, her demeanor had changed. She wasn't just standing her ground anymore. She was more guarded, calculating, like she'd just found a new weapon in this fight. Then she dropped the bombshell. She claimed her family had owned part of the lakefront property years ago, and that she had rights to that parking lot too. This was a total curveball. I knew the history of the land pretty well, and her story didn't match up with the public records or what my own lawyer had told me. Suddenly, neighbors who had been watching got even more involved. Some took Karen's side, whispering about old family claims and traditions that supposedly gave her some kind of informal ownership. Others backed me, insisting that the legal documents were clear and that anyone claiming otherwise was just stirring up trouble. The community was divided, and the tension grew into something bigger than just two people fighting over a parking spot. Now, the conflict wasn't just about entitlement or respect. It was about legacy, history, and who really had the right to this land. And with emotions running high and loyalties split, the peaceful lake retreat was turning into a battlefield. The stakes had just gone way up, and I wasn't sure how this would end. Would the truth come out, or would the confusion and conflict only get worse? Just as things were reaching a boiling point, I decided it was time to show Karen the facts. Calmly, I pulled out the official property documents I'd brought with me, the ones proving I owned the entire parking lot and the surrounding land. The papers were clear, with my name stamped on every page. I held them up for everyone to see. Karen's confident smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure and started arguing again, claiming there was some hidden truth she knew about. That's when one of the neighbors, an older gentleman who had been quietly watching the whole time, stepped forward. He surprised everyone by saying he had old records from decades ago, including maps and deeds stored in his attic. After some back and forth, he agreed to pull out those documents and share them with the group. When he laid the papers down, it became obvious. The land had changed hands multiple times over the years, but all the transfers clearly ended up with me as the current legal owner. Karen's claim to family ownership was based on old stories, not legal proof. The crowd began to murmur, and Karen's group slowly started to disperse. She looked frustrated, but said nothing more about her rights. Just when it seemed like the conflict had finally settled, something unexpected happened. The neighbor handed me one last paper, an unrecorded, handwritten note from the original property owner. It mentioned a small secret pathway behind the cabins that led to a hidden private dock on the lake, a place no one else knew about. That twist changed everything. While Karen had lost the battle over the parking lot, this new discovery hinted at an even bigger secret about the property, one that could change how everyone viewed the lakefront land. As the sun started to set, I realized this story was far from over. The parking spot fight might be done, but a deeper mystery was just beginning. What lay beyond that hidden path, and who else might come looking for it? The peace at my lake cabin was only just starting to unravel.